you take us back to the beginning? How did you discover your passion for storytelling?
Oh man. I mean, I've been writing stories as long as I can remember. I used to, do you remember Zonga back in the
Yeah.
day? Yeah. So
Yes.
I actually used to write a Zonga where it was like kind of like fan fiction about all of my friends in like middle school and high school. So and then I did like fan fiction, erotic fan fiction.net stories about my favorite anime characters, stuff like that. So I think it's just always been ingrained.
What a great throwback. When you look at your career as a whole, who or what has had the biggest influence, either personally or professionally?
I mean, I always cite Margaret Cho as the entire reason I have a career. I saw her perform stand up when I was, I think, 18 or 19 years old. And seeing someone who looked like me up on stage for the first time is what really propelled me to start moving forward.
In addition to acting, you're also a writer, director, producer, and creator. How have your experiences behind the camera impacted the way that you approach your work on screen and vice versa?
I think like doing YouTube in particular, in which I've had to film myself and watch myself and edit myself, has really given me an awareness of my body and face that I just didn't have innately. Like I think some people are naturally incredibly good at acting. I was not one of those people. I had to work very, very hard. And doing my own content and being behind the camera is what actually taught me how to connect certain emotions with what I was actually emoting. Sometimes I'd be like, oh wow, I did a really great job like feeling sad in that scene, and then you'd watch the camera and my face is like completely deadpan and kind of looks annoyed. So I think it's really helped put me in my body and root me in my body, especially because numbing is kind of my coping mechanism, or like
Hmm.
disassociating has been something that was always taught to me as a kid. So actually allowing myself to feel feelings and then communicate those feelings in front of the camera has been a challenge.
Great answer. You got a new project out now. Can you tell us about Blade of the 47th Ronin, your character, and what drew you to this project?
Yeah, Blade of the 47 Ronin is a sequel to the 47 Ronin, which I believe came out in like 2003 or 2013. Sorry that I don't know that off the top of my head. But the film we're in takes place 300 years in the future. So the original film takes place in the feudal area and covers the sort of legendary aspect of the Tengu sword. We are now in the future. The Tengu sword has been split in two, and each half has been given to the samurai clan and the witch clan to ensure peace and that no one clan can ever get the sword, unite it, and take over. But of course, there's a great evil that wants to unite the sword and use its power to take over the world as evil does. And so my character Luna is an ex-con from the States. She's got a rap sheet and she's coming over because she has received an inheritance from her father. She's hoping it's cash. Unfortunately, it's just some relic old sword. It's not even a full sword, it's half of a sword. And she gets pulled into this world of samurai and witches who are battling it out for the fate of all of us in humanity.
Yeah, what was it about this project that attracted you to it?
Well, Luna, I initially actually auditioned for Onami, who is played by
Oh,
Teresa King.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm actually really glad Ron brought me in for Luna after he saw my Onami audition. He was like, you've got like too much edge for Onami, but just enough edge for Luna. And when we were talking about it, I really loved his idea of like leaning into and subverting the tropes of this kind of film. You know, like
Yeah.
we've all seen the chosen one who fights the great evil, who's a fish out of water. And he really wanted Luna to be very sardonic, to be like almost like winking at the audience, like, yeah, I know, we know what these tropes are, let's have fun with it. And she was sort of the mouthpiece of skepticism from the audience. And so I really loved the idea of getting to do an action comedy, as I've lived in either vertical, like pure comedy or pure action, but I've never gotten to bring both of those to the intersection, is my personal sweet spot and what I love to do. So this is the first project where I was like, yes, okay, I get to fight, but I also get to be funny.
Yeah, when Ron pitched this different character to you, how did that change your mindset and preparation for this project?
It was really collaborative. Like Ron was a very collaborative director. He was always open to hearing, my opinion about Luna and how I felt like she should be informed. But we
Hmm.
both kind of approached it from the sense of he really wanted her to be as funny and as witty and as wry as possible while still tracking her emotional movements throughout the movie. So I guess my preparation was predominantly in stunt training. We did We did stunt training for 5 hours a day. I mean, Mike Mo's a martial arts teacher. Teresa Ting's a wushu champion. Yoshi Sudarso is like an acrobatic god, as well as Mark Dacascos. So everyone else on this film is like so physically capable. So I was kind of the fish out of water as an actor as well, of like, oh, I did martial arts as a kid, but I am not as good as these guys. So I had to really keep up with their prowess throughout the whole thing.
To this film expecting this high octane action film, but I think what was unexpected was the humor, like you were saying, which was very intentional. And you have a comedic background. How much of it was improvised versus scripted? And did you have a favorite line of Luna's?
We were constantly ad-libbing on set or rewriting jokes, trying to bring it more grounded, because like the writers are amazing, but there were some things that you can only address once you're on set. You have the wardrobe, you're
Yeah.
in the environment. So we tried to write everything to play to the moment and not just what was in the script. My favorite joke is actually not said by me. It's said by Dustin's character when him and Yoshi are fighting. Not to spoil it for everyone, but basically Yoshi's trying to get the location of a safe out of Dustin's character, and he goes, where the fuck is the safe? And Dustin says, where the fuck are your sleeves? And Yoshi's in this like sleeveless little vest. I could not stop laughing when I watched that, and that was born purely in the moment between those two. So I feel like some of the best jokes in the film came organically out of everyone
Yeah.
just kind of having the freedom to riff.
Yeah, on the flip side of that, Luna has such an emotional journey within the film, and you handle that with so much nuance. As an actress, how did you create the space for yourself to dive into that?
Oh, wow. I mean, it's really, my process has changed a lot. I used to be one of those actors who was like, let me think about all of my trauma and my sadness. And then I kind of got very exhausted, by re-traumatizing myself with my real trauma all the time. So now I try to really just root myself in, if I were this person living this circumstances, how would this feel? And like letting my imagination take the work so that when the camera cuts, I'm not bogged down now in my own stuff.
Mm.
So with her, I just really tried to imagine like having had no family, finally feeling a semblance of family, and then having fucked up. Like how would I feel in that moment? And then to be abandoned by everyone after I'd
Mm.
dared give myself the hope of intimacy and connection.
I love the dynamic between Luna and Teresa's character. And you guys have such a fun evolution throughout that film. What was it like collaborating with her and bringing that to life?
Oh, Teresa and I had so much fun. We had such a blast. Teresa's such a little goofball too. It's so funny to watch her switch into like strict traditional Onami. But we spent a lot of time in rehearsals, kind of improving and figuring out like what our tiff was, because we never wanted it to be, this girl versus this girl. Like the two
Yeah.
main girls in the movie are fighting and are enemies, but having it more come from a difference of values, like her being very much about tradition, about duty and responsibility, and Luna being, very individualistic, having come from the States, whereas Onami's from Japan. The culture clash in these two perspectives these two women have. And ultimately, we felt like once we kind of like honed in on those perspectives, and it wasn't necessarily about a cattiness towards each other, it really let us feel empowered in our sort of banter back and forth.
You've also said in previous interviews that growing up, you rarely saw yourself represented on screen. What's it meant to you to not only that you, but the rest of the cast are ensuring that future generations won't have to experience something similar?
I mean, it's so great. Like the idea that maybe, in a couple generations, like they won't even care about representation because it's everywhere,
Yeah.
I always feel like this with my older gay friends. They're like, we paved the way so that you don't have to care about this shit. And I'm like, oh yeah, and so it does feel wonderful to be like, okay, we have a movie with an all Asian cast set against European architecture. I, as like a young Asian woman, could watch this movie and I have like 4 or 5 different characters. I get to choose, well, which one am I out of all of these? Rather than like, well, I'm the Yellow Ranger because that's the only Asian I'm
Yeah.
seeing on screen. And so it is wonderful to get to be the lead of a film where you're like, oh my God, like everyone looks like me. Even though we're not a monolithic experience for all Asians, like it was just such a sense of community, and it's so different than it was 10 years ago when actual executives told me to my face, well, we can't have more than one Asian on this show. So it's amazing how much things can change in just a decade.
Perfect segue to this next question, but you've talked about the adversities that you face as an Asian creator in this space. When did you start seeing that shift, and why do you think it's taken us so long to get here?
Man, I started seeing that show. Obviously, Crazy Rich Asians was a pinnacle moment for the community in which we were like, throw all your money at it. We got to make sure this is financially successful. I also think Everything Everywhere All at Once is really cementing that shift. I've had the fortune of being in several movies with all Asian casts as recently, whereas at the beginning of my career that was unheard of.
Yeah.
And I'd actually, had been denied opportunities because I was told having an Asian lead was too much of a risk, despite my digital following and the experience that I brought to the table. But I think I've really, really noticed it in the last couple of years. And obviously, we still have some challenges, right? Like, I don't agree with um overtly authentic casting. Like, you can't audition for this unless you're Chinese, or you can't audition for this unless you're Korean, because we don't ask our Caucasian counterparts to do that, to do the same thing. We're never saying like you have to be American to do this, or you have to be Irish to do this role. And so I feel like now people have gone like a little bit too extreme on the other spectrum of wanting to authentically represent. So I'm hoping, in the next couple of years we pull back and we exist sort of in the middle.
Great answer. The film is out now on Netflix. It's been incredibly well received. What do you hope audiences take away? Is there a scene in particular that you're really excited for your fans to see?
Oh man, I'm so excited. I mean, we hit number 3 on Netflix, top 10 Netflix in the first week, which I was like, wow, okay, a little movie. I guess what I really hope people take away from the film is a sense of female empowerment, like,
Yeah.
and laugh, a fun laugh. Like, it is a fun romp. It is like, a movie that tries to entertain you and make you laugh, while also delivering like this wonderful cast of characters in this really cool world. I think my favorite scene, oh man, I mean, definitely the one with Yoshi that I mentioned before. But just, there's this wonderful fight on the metro that I thought was phenomenal. Like, I'm not in it because at that point in the film I'm somewhere else, not to spoil. But that fight scene was so badass that I hope when people watch it they get inspired in some form or another to. I mean, this sounds weird, but be physically active. Like, when I saw that scene, I was like, oh, I want to like go for a run. Like, my heart's really pumping watching this fight scene. So hopefully people will get like a fun jolt out of it.
And like you're saying earlier, you get to show off all of your different talents in this film. Did anything surprise you about this overall experience? What's been the biggest takeaway that you'll take to the next project?
Oh man, well, this honestly, I think being the weakest link as a martial artist amongst everyone has really, really inspired me. I was like, wow, I need to up my game. I need to make sure that I am on it for the next one. So I've continued training in martial arts after the film. We wrapped last October, October 2021, or sorry, December 2021. So since then, I've been now training in martial arts like 1 to 2 times a week to make sure that I'm fresh and that the next time I'm on a set, I'm not the weakest martial artist there. So I've definitely taken that discipline with me since the wrap.
And without giving any spoilers, the film ends pretty open-ended. Have there been any conversations about potentially doing another film? Would that be
Look,
something that you're interested in?
I'm harassing the producers every day for our next film. So we'll see. I'm curious to talk to them now that it's been out for a week and see how they feel about everything, but we shall see.
I got one final question for you. You're such a dynamic storyteller. As you look ahead to the next 5 to 10 years, is there a dream role or story that you would love to bring to life, either in front of the camera or behind it?
I'm manifesting it now. I would love to be Dr. Aphra from the Star Wars world. There's an amazing graphic novel about an archaeologist who faked her death to get away from Vader, but she worked for Vader. And so she's got her own like BB-8 and C-3PO, who are actually like torture robots for Vader, and like a crazy dark Chewbacca who like murders people. And so like they're this team of misfits going throughout the universe collecting weird archaeological facts. And I'm hoping one day that the Star Wars universe decides to make a rated R trilogy and that I can be Dr. Aphra because I love her.